Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Myla Simply Bloom. We have our first snowfall and I have to say I am so excited. I live in northern Minnesota, zone 3. Typically, up until the last 2 years ago, we always have a very snowy and very cold winter. But the last 2 years, not so much. And I have honestly missed the snow. This is just a dusting. It probably will disappear. It's supposed to warm up to 36 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow. So unfortunately, I think it's going to disappear. But I thought I would take this opportunity to show you some of my favorite winter interests that I currently have in the garden right now. So if you're really lacking that winter interest in your garden, you can maybe learn from mine and maybe add some of these into your garden if you find them interesting. So let's get started. First thing behind me you can probably see are some crab apples. This is an ornamental flowering crab. It is a red splendor. So there's two kinds of ornamental crab apples. There's ones that drop their apples onto the ground and they are a complete mess. But if you have them off the beaten track, they're not too bad, and there's some really beautiful varieties. I have a Thunder Child. That one's a very beautiful one that drops its apples. But this one behind me is my all-time favorite. It is a red splendor flowering crab. It has that beautiful, deep, almost magenta reddish color blooms in the spring, and then it gets these red berries the late summer, early fall, and these hold on to the berries all winter long or until the birds clean them up. And normally by the time we get our spring, the birds have cleaned up the berries quite well. So I like that it feeds and provides food for the birds as well. Here is an up close. Now, as the weather drops and gets colder, these berries will turn a deep burgundy, almost black color. But since it's been so warm, they are still red. And you can see I like to string blue Christmas lights onto this tree as well. Now moving on here, I have a rock garden. Now in the summertime, it provides beautiful interest. I have some creeping sedums and lamium that kind of creep over the rocks. But even after the plants kind of die back with a fresh blanket of snow, the rock themselves bring so much interest. And I love the way the snow kind of just gently falls and settles into the cracks and crevices while still showing the rocks. Now, most years, before the last couple years, when we had our typical winters, these rocks would get completely covered with snow, so you couldn't even see them. But if you're somewhere that gets a little dusting like this, perfect to add to your garden because I love the way it looks with the snow. Now I feel like this speaks for itself, but fountains, statuary, any hardscape in the garden, this is actually a fountain. We use it more as a statue piece. The bowls aren't level anymore. They were when we first installed it, but with the ground heaving and unthawing and all that stuff, things shifted. So it's not level. We don't use it as a fountain. We use it more as a statue piece. If you do have a working fountain, make sure you get all the water out of it before it freezes so it doesn't damage the bowls. If you're worried about damaging your fountains, you can get covers to cover them, but I personally like to leave them open, and I think these are so gorgeous in the winter time. Right here I have several winter interests. First, evergreens. You cannot go wrong with an evergreen. They bring interest 365 days a year. This is a blue diamond blue spruce. I especially love this one because it is a blue silvery color and I think it looks beautiful with the snow. I do have Christmas lights on this one as well. It looks gorgeous at nighttime when we light them up. I am doing a Christmas light tour soon. I just have a couple more. I need to grab a couple more extension cords to get everything plugged in, but beautiful. And then here as well, I have an arbor. Arbors bring beautiful interest, not just in the spring, summertime, or fall, but also in the winter time as well, and just add that structure. Sometimes things get lost in the sea of white, and it's nice to have structure. And also another statue, a horse statue. Another thing I really love, kind of on that same hardscape, is I love fences. Now this is a very rustic fence and needs a lot of TLC, but I really love the way fences look in the winter time. Again, just kind of breaking up that sea of white, adding structure, and this looks gorgeous when there's a lot of snow on it. I want to touch briefly on this. Now this is a lemon cypress. This will not survive my winters, but I like it in these containers because it's bringing a lot of winter interest. Now these will turn brown and die. some point throughout the winter time. And one thing you want to keep in mind when planting in containers, they say you want to grab something that survives 2 zones lower than you currently are. So if you're in a zone 5, I'm not, but if you're in a zone 5 and you want to plant an evergreen in a container, make sure you get an evergreen that's 2 zones lower than zone 5. So zone 3, you're looking for an evergreen that survives zone 3 winters and you know it will survive a container. The reason why you do that is the ground brings a lot of insulation to the plant roots when it's in the ground, but when it's above ground level, even if it's in a pot, that cold air will surround the root ball, making it way colder and can potentially kill your plant if it's not rated to that zone. Not sure if you can see this one real well, but this is a barberry. I'm not sure the variety. My husband planted it before I met him, but what I love about this is it gets those brilliant red berries that stay on most of the winter, and typically it's there for the robins. We get robins, we have a fall spring, we get like 3 fall springs, then we get winter back, and there's all these robins here that get dumped on with snow, and I find that they actually eat these barberries early spring when there's no worms, nothing else for them to eat. They will eat these barberries. Next we have hydrangeas, or hydrangea standards, tree form. I love these when it gets snow. Unfortunately, I typically end up having to deadhead all the blooms. We get really heavy wet snowfalls, and the last couple years where I didn't deadhead them, the snow weighed the branches down so much I ended up losing some very important main branches that just broke off and snapped. But if you're somewhere that doesn't get a whole lot of snow, just light dustings from here and now, definitely I would leave the blooms on. They provide incredible winter interest. Okay, last thing I wanted to touch on, I'm kind of ducking under. I have this arbor here with wisteria growing over it, which I think is an incredible winter interest itself. It gets these seed pods that are just absolutely beautiful. But the main attraction I wanted to point out was ornamental grass. I'm not a huge fan of the ornamental grasses that survive in zone 3 are not as beautiful as some of the others when you're in a warmer zone. I do not like this grass most of the year, but late fall and during the winter time is the only reason why I keep this grass. It gets these beautiful plumes. It looks beautiful with the frost, and just the gently blowing in the breeze with the snow in the background, I think is absolutely beautiful. Before I finish out, stay tuned. I want to show a little bit of a winter garden tour I did 4 winters ago now. That was our last good Minnesota winter. We had a ton of snow, so everything I showed you just now I'll show in this garden tour, and we had, I think, a good 4 feet of snow at the time of filming. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will close it out and leave it with this. Bye.